A struggling man walks into a high-end store, only to be humiliated by the cashier. Moments later, Jeff Bezos enters, and what he does next leaves everyone in shock. The upscale department store was alive with activity, its polished floors reflecting the glimmering chandeliers overhead. Rows of luxury items lined the shelves, each one more expensive than the last. Behind the counter stood Amanda, a cashier with a sharp eye for judging customers. She prided herself on spotting serious buyers from time wasters, and today her gaze landed on a man who, in her eyes, clearly didn't belong. The man, wearing a worn jacket and scuffed shoes, stood near the counter, his hands clutching a small list of items. His name was Sam, and he had spent weeks saving every spare dollar for this trip. For him, it wasn't about luxury, it was about providing something special for his family. Amanda approached the counter with a forced smile, her tone laced with subtle condescension. "Can I help you?" she asked, her eyes flicking toward his shabby clothes. Sam nodded hesitantly. "Yes," he said, holding up his list. "I'd like to buy a few things. I've been saving up." Amanda raised an eyebrow, scanning the list. "These are some of our premium items," she said, her smile thinning. "Are you sure you can afford them?" Sam's cheeks flushed, but he nodded. "I've got enough," he said softly. "Just tell me how much." Amanda sighed, crossing her arms. "Look," she said bluntly, "this store has a reputation to maintain. Maybe you should try somewhere more, within your range." Sam's face fell, the weight of her words hitting him like a punch. The humiliation was unbearable, but he stood his ground. "I've worked hard for this," he said, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "I deserve to be treated with respect." Before Amanda could respond, the sound of the door chime cut through the tension. The store fell silent as the unmistakable figure of Jeff Bezos walked in, his presence commanding instant attention. Dressed simply yet exuding authority, Bezos scanned the room, his sharp eyes locking onto the scene unfolding at the counter. Amanda froze, her confidence evaporating in an instant. Sam turned to see who had entered, his confusion quickly replaced by shock. The richest man in the world had just walked into the store, and the atmosphere was about to change completely. Jeff Bezos strode through the store with an air of quiet authority, the murmurs of the other customers trailing behind him. His sharp eyes quickly assessed the situation at the counter, the embarrassed man clutching his list, the tense cashier frozen in place, and the uncomfortable glances of onlookers who had overheard the exchange. Bezos stopped a few feet from Sam and Amanda, his presence alone silencing the room. He addressed Sam first, his tone calm but full of interest. "What's going on here?" he asked, his gaze shifting to the crumpled list in Sam's hand. Sam hesitated, his voice shaking slightly as he explained. "I came here to buy some things for my family," he said. "I saved up for weeks, but—" He trailed off, his eyes darting toward Amanda, who looked visibly uncomfortable. Bezos turned to Amanda, his expression neutral but his tone carrying weight. "And," he prompted, his question cutting through the tension. Amanda fumbled for words, her confident demeanor from moments earlier replaced with nervousness. I was just making sure he understood the prices," she stammered. "We get a lot of window shoppers." Bezos raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. "Window shoppers?" he repeated, his voice calm but sharp. "So you assumed he couldn't afford to shop here?" Amanda opened her mouth to respond, but Bezos didn't wait for an answer. He turned back to Sam, his voice softening. "May I see your list?" Sam nodded, handing it over. Bezos scanned the items, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "These are good choices," he said. "Your family's lucky to have you." Sam's face flushed with gratitude, his earlier humiliation beginning to fade. "Thank you, sir," he said quietly. Bezos turned to Amanda, his tone firm but measured. "In my businesses, we treat every customer with respect," he said. "It doesn't matter what they look like or what they're buying. If they walk through the door, they're here for a reason, and they deserve to be treated with dignity." Amanda nodded quickly, her face pale. "I understand, Mr. Bezos," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Bezos smiled faintly, then looked back at Sam. "Now," he said, "let's make this right." He handed the list to Amanda. "Gather everything on this list," he instructed, "and make sure it's done properly. Amanda nodded and hurried away, her earlier arrogance replaced by hurried efficiency. The other customers watched in awe as Bezos turned back to Sam. "Don't worry about the cost," Bezos said, his voice kind. "Tonight, it's on me." Sam's eyes widened, his hands trembling. "You don't have to do that," he said, his voice cracking. "I can pay." Bezos raised a hand, stopping him gently. "Consider it a gift," he said, "for all the hard work you've done to take care of your family." The room fell silent, the weight of Bezos's words settling over everyone. But this wasn't the end. What Jeff Bezos did next would leave an even greater impact on everyone in the store. The silence in the store was heavy, filled with awe and admiration as Jeff Bezos stood beside Sam, who still seemed too stunned to speak. Amanda returned moments later, her arms laden with items from the list. She placed them gently on the counter, her earlier condescension replaced with quiet humility. Bezos gestured to the items. "Is this everything you wanted?" he asked Sam, his tone warm. Sam nodded slowly, his voice shaky. "Yes, sir," he said. "It's more than enough." Bezos smiled. "Good," he said, pulling out his wallet and handing his black card to Amanda. "Ring it up." Amanda's hands trembled as she processed the purchase, the subtle murmurs of customers and staff filling the space. Sam stood quietly, his mind racing as he tried to comprehend the generosity unfolding in front of him. As Amanda handed the bagged items to Sam, Bezos turned to the room, his voice carrying across the space. "Let me ask all of you something," he said, addressing the onlookers. "How often do we judge people by what they wear, what they look like, or what we think they can afford?" The crowd exchanged glances, several nodding uncomfortably as Bezos's words struck a chord. He continued, his tone firm but compassionate. "What happened here today is a reminder that respect doesn't cost anything, but it's worth everything. The person you overlook might be working harder than you can imagine to achieve something meaningful." The crowd fell silent, the weight of Bezos's message resonating deeply. He turned back to Sam, his voice softening. "You've worked hard for your family," he said, "and that deserves respect, not judgment." Sam's eyes glistened as he clutched the bags tightly. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for seeing me." Bezos gave him a small nod. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "Just keep taking care of your family. That's what really matters." The room erupted into applause, the admiration for Bezos palpable. But he wasn't done yet. Turning back to Amanda and the staff, he spoke with quiet authority. "From now on, I want every employee here to remember what happened today," he said, "and I want the culture in this store to reflect that respect is non-negotiable." Amanda nodded quickly, her face a mix of relief and determination. "We'll do better, Mr. Bezos," she said. "I promise." Bezos smiled faintly. "Good," he said. "Now let's make this a night worth remembering." But Jeff Bezos had one final surprise in store that would take this act of generosity to another level, leaving everyone in the store truly inspired. As the applause subsided, Jeff Bezos glanced around the store, his thoughtful expression signaling that he wasn't finished. He turned to Sam, who stood clutching the bags tightly, still processing the generosity he'd just received. "Before you go," Bezos said, "I want you to help me with something." Sam blinked, surprised. "Help you?" he asked hesitantly. Bezos nodded. "I want to make sure no one else has to go through what you did today. You've worked hard to support your family, and that's a story people need to hear." He turned to Amanda and the rest of the staff, who had gathered nearby. "Starting today, I'm setting up a fund for this store," Bezos announced, his voice steady. "It will cover the cost of necessities for families in need. No questions asked." Gasps rippled through the room, followed by a wave of murmured admiration. Amanda and the staff exchanged astonished glances, their initial shame now replaced with gratitude for the opportunity to make amends. Bezos continued, addressing the staff directly. "This fund will be managed by you," he said, "but there's one condition. Every customer who walks through these doors, regardless of how they look or what you think of them, will be treated with respect. Understood?" Amanda stepped forward, her voice filled with sincerity. "Understood, Mr. Bezos. Thank you for giving us this chance to do better." Bezos smiled faintly before turning back to Sam. "You've inspired something bigger than just tonight," he said. "I want you to know that your hard work hasn't gone unnoticed, and it's going to help others." Sam's eyes filled with tears as he nodded, his voice trembling. I don't know how to thank you for this, he said. You've done more for me and my family than I ever imagined. Bezos placed a reassuring hand on Sam's shoulder. You don't need to thank me, he said. Just keep doing what you're doing. And when you can, pay it forward. The room filled with applause again, louder this time, as customers and staff alike cheered for Bezos' initiative. Even the onlookers who had come to shop found themselves deeply moved, their respect for Bezos reaching new heights. As the energy in the room grew, Bezos glanced at the time. All right, he said with a grin, let's wrap up the night with something special. But Bezos' final gesture, which was about to unfold, would cement this night as unforgettable for everyone in the store. The store was alive with energy as Jeff Bezos prepared to deliver one last gesture, ensuring the night would be unforgettable. Turning to the staff, he spoke with a calm but commanding tone. I want tonight to be about more than just this moment, he said. It's about creating a culture of respect and kindness, something this store and every store should stand for. Bezos then addressed the room, his eyes scanning the gathered customers. To everyone here tonight, he began, your support for businesses like this one keeps them thriving. As a thank you, I'll be covering all purchases made in this store today. Whatever you're buying, consider it my gift to you. The room erupted into stunned gasps and applause, the shock on every face palpable. Customers exchanged excited whispers, and some even shed tears, overwhelmed by the unexpected generosity. One mother with her child clutched a small toy, her voice trembling as she said, I can't believe this. It's like a dream. Bezos smiled warmly, raising his hand to quiet the crowd. I hope this reminds all of us that kindness is contagious, he said. When we treat others with dignity, it creates a ripple effect that can change lives. He turned back to Sam, who stood rooted to the spot, his hands still clutching his shopping bags. Sam, Bezos said, his tone softer now, you've reminded all of us what it means to work hard and never give up. You're the reason for all of this tonight. Thank you for being you. Sam's voice cracked as he tried to respond. I don't know how to thank you, he said, his eyes brimming with tears. You've changed my life and my family's life. Bezos placed a reassuring hand on Sam's shoulder. Just promise me you'll keep going, he said, and one day, when the opportunity comes, help someone else the way I've helped you. As the night wound down, the energy in the store remained electric. Customers left with their purchases, their hearts full of gratitude, while the staff gathered around Bezos, each expressing their admiration and newfound commitment to his vision of respect and kindness. Before stepping out of the store, Bezos turned to Emily, the store manager. Emily, he said with a smile, let's make sure this place becomes an example for others. Kindness starts here. Emily nodded, her voice filled with resolve. We won't let you down, Mr. Bezos. With one final wave to the crowd, Bezos exited into the night, leaving behind a store transformed, not just in policy, but in spirit. For Sam, it was the start of a brighter chapter. For the staff, it was a reminder of the power of humility. And for everyone present, it was a story they'd carry with them forever. A story about the richest man in the world using his influence to create something priceless. This heartwarming story reminds us of the power of kindness and respect. Don't miss more inspiring moments like this. Like, comment, and subscribe for stories that move and inspire you to make a difference.